It's just Jason Katerina on AM 560, The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com. Now, from the Signature Bank Studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft on AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. Let's talk a little bit about Gen Z. This is a kind of a funny thing. This is a post on X. I'm a recruiter, so I do a ton of phone interviews. Something I've noticed about Gen Z specifically is that a lot of them answer the phone and don't say anything. Like, I can hear their breathing and the background noise, but they wait for you to say hello first. They don't know how to use a phone. Or they don't know how to interact with another human being on the phone. They just know how to text, apparently. And just a little clarification for this recruiter. He added, for clarification, the people that he is calling, the candidates have self-scheduled these calls. I'm calling at the exact time they chose, and also received a reminder email about an hour beforehand. They also have my number ahead of time, so they know who's calling, at least if they took the trouble to program his name and with his number in their phone. And the responses to this post, I mean, it's just a small thing, but it's sort of a cultural oddity. The response to this post, he had a bunch of Gen Zers basically saying, you called, you have to speak first. But I mean, without explaining the obvious to anybody who's not a Gen Zer, how do you know when to speak if somebody just clicks and doesn't say hello? Okay. Just a sort of a odd little angle into our next guest, James Lawley, founder of the YouTube channel Gent Z, G-E-N-T as in gentleman, Gent Z, and gent-z.com. He was recently profiled in a Wall Street Journal piece about this community he's built around teaching how young men to be classically masculine. What does that mean? What does it entail? What lessons does he have for even those who are well north of Gen Z? James Lawley joins us. James, thanks for being with us. Appreciate it.
Good morning, Dan. Great to be here.
Now, as people can tell, you've got that British accent because you moved from London to Chicago. What was the basis of that move in the first place?
Yeah, good question. Well, I was actually born in the U.S. I was born in Alabama, and I grew up in England with British parents. So I got the accent and then decided to come back to the U.S.
Okay. Alabama to London to Chicago. It's an interesting journey. All right, so tell us what classic masculinity means to you, and sort of some of the principles you're trying to impart upon your fellow Gen Zers.
Sure. Some men that would embody this classically masculine ideal would be people like Cary Grant, Sean Connery, Gregory Peck, a lot of those old Hollywood icons. Somebody who's classically masculine is very well dressed. They take pride in their appearance. They understand that the way you present yourself is an important part of who you are as a man. They are well spoken. They're physically fit, but they're also intellectually strong, and they have a lot of integrity. They have strong values, and ultimately, I think they are the kind of sons, brothers, and future fathers that our society needs now.
Well, it's interesting. I just saw this data point. In 1960, 52% of people were married by the age of 30 and had a house. Today, that number is 12%.
Yeah. Well, it's tricky dating these days, I will say. I'm not in that percentage of young people that are married myself, because we've had a lot of changes, especially over the last few years. I heard your segment earlier about the Gen Z people picking up the phone and not even knowing how to answer the phone properly. We had a whole generation of people whose social growth was really stunted for 2 to 3 years by those lockdowns. And it just meant that they don't have the same levels of confidence socially. They don't really know how to navigate dating and relationships. They're dropping out of the workforce. And I think a big part of it as well is that people have grown up with a lack of strong fathers or strong male role models, and a lack of stable marriages in their parents to model and to aspire to.
But I mean, so then, like the one of the segments that was profiled in the journal piece was this this video you did for Gen Z men, how to go to a bar alone. What does that entail in sum?
Absolutely. Well, I first moved to Chicago and I didn't know a single person, so I thought it made logical sense that I would go to a cocktail bar or something like that by myself, and I would sit there and just strike up conversations with the regulars and get to know people that way. And when I started telling my peers and people my age what I was doing, it kind of blew their minds that you could just walk into a place by yourself and strike up conversations with strangers. So I realized that that wasn't as much of a given as I thought it was, and I decided to really break it down and explain, how do you build the confidence to walk into a crowded bar by yourself? How should you dress? What's a good way to strike up a conversation? How to make conversation with the bartenders? That kind of stuff.
And I mean, is it really that that widespread, this problem of going out in public and I mean, is the attitude just generally speaking that that's what the internet is for, and if I wanted to try to get a girl to go out with me, then that's what dating apps are for? That's just sort of the default position?
I would say that a large percentage of Gen Z men and women segment their life in that way. And for the first time in history, we have the kind of setup in life where leaving the house is kind of optional. You can work from home, you can get your food delivered on DoorDash or Uber Eats, you can watch Netflix or whatever you want for your entertainment. So actually leaving the house and putting yourself out there it's no longer the default. It's actually something you have to make a deliberate effort to go and do.
So, I mean, I'm just thinking, like, how much buy-in are you getting to? Because I mean, I have this image, and you mentioned some of the the great stars from the golden age of Hollywood, but I have this image of like a bunch of guys walking around like they're right off the set of Kingsman with Colin Firth, and I'm just having a hard time seeing how far you can get anybody, frankly. These days to dress in a suit, wear a tie, formally sort of present yourself the way that publicly the way that you're describing.
Yeah, well, it's not about necessarily wearing a suit and tie in public. I would say it comes down to more of the manners, the communication skills, the confidence, and perhaps instead of wearing a scruffy T-shirt and running shoes all the time, maybe you go back to wearing a polo shirt and chinos, or you wear those things for the first time. So it's more about small incremental changes. And in terms of the scale, when I began doing what I do on social media and talking about these ideas, I didn't really expect that many people would resonate with them. I expected it to be quite a niche thing. And then less than 2 years later, the YouTube videos get about 2 million views a month. The Instagram videos get about 10 million views a month. And we just had the Wall Street Journal and Fox News this weekend pick it up as well. So the movement has become a lot bigger than anything I anticipated.
Is it life advice too? Gen Zers deciding whether or not to go to college, take a gap year, go right to the workforce. Do you get into those matters as well?
We get into living with intention. And what I mean by that is don't spend your time playing video games. Don't spend your time just sat on dating apps or giving up on the whole thing. Don't spend your time working from home in sweatpants. You have to get yourself out there, contribute to society, think about how you can help others.
What about, sort of the well-rounded gentleman, if you will? I know you mentioned about being intellectually fit as well as physically fit. But, you can have a guy who's got a nice job at a big accounting firm or financial service firm. He works for a hedge fund in town or something like that, and he's doing very well as a young man. But he's also very one-dimensional. He's like not read any important books or had any important thoughts other than whatever's going on in the back office of the hedge fund he works at. I mean, what about that sort of challenge?
Yeah, that's a great point. And I do come across a lot of men in that position where they are, outwardly successful. They're earning six figures. They've got the good job title, but they're not very well rounded as people. So I encourage men to think about their life kind of like the idea of a Renaissance man. So somebody that has a physical side to them. Maybe they work out, maybe they play sport, martial arts, etc. They also have read the classics. They're reading Hemingway. They're reading Aurelius Meditations. And then they have a creative hobby as well. Perhaps they play guitar, or maybe they paint. Maybe they enjoy going to the great museums that we have in Chicago. So they've got the physical side, they've got the intellectual side, they've also got the creative side.
And you have had a journey, not just a geographical one, but a stylistic journey as well, as I read from that journal. You weren't always the button-down English gentleman you present today.
Absolutely. It's funny because I think people might see my channel or hear me speak and assume that I went to Eton and my father was like this Colin Firth figure in the Kingsman, that really showed me everything. But it wasn't that way at all. I grew up in a pretty ordinary kind of small town in the UK where I didn't see anybody wearing nice suits and ties. And I really figured this thing out for myself. And when I was a teenager, I had long hair and I was playing in a heavy metal band and listening to Iron Maiden. So I've definitely been on a journey myself, and I still am. And I feel like what I do with my videos is I take people on the journey with me. And as I discover things that are helping me and that are interesting to me, I just share them with other people.
And is this really focused on? I know you've given a broad brush of the topics and advice and counsel that you give, but it just seems to me like so much of this is dating oriented. Is that true?
I think that's a motivation for a lot of people, but also if you think about the qualities that a good woman would be looking for in a man. They're not two bad things to aim for either.
Right.
So, whichever way you try and look at it, you end up emulating a good ideal or you end up adopting positive qualities. I think for some men, they are more motivated by dating than others. Other men that watch my channel or are part of our community, they're already married. They've already got kids even. So they're not trying to attract new women on the dating market, but they're trying to be the best husband and the best father that they can be.
How much of this is intended to be sort of a countercultural response to like the Andrew Tates of the world?
Mm-hmm. I wouldn't say it's deliberately intended, but I think what happens is a lot of young men go kind of looking for answers about how to go about in life, what to aim for. And when they go on the internet, they are confronted with kind of the left-wing agenda, which just tells men to be very vulnerable and to focus on their feelings and that they don't have to work hard, it doesn't matter. And they go, well, that doesn't appeal to me. And then they look to see what else is out there, and they see Andrew Tate talking about how it's important to be aggressive and it's all about how much money you make and how big your muscles are. So when you're looking for more of a middle ground or more of a balanced kind of intelligent approach, there really wasn't a lot there before I started doing what I was doing. And there specifically wasn't a lot talking about style, manners, discipline, self-respect for a Gen Z perspective. There were some older men talking about this, but nobody in their 20s.
Yeah, and on a peer-to-peer basis too. That seems to be the key, like credibility with the audience.
Absolutely, and going on that journey with them. So when I discuss things that are happening, for example, in my dating life or things that I've been doing socially, somebody else that's 27, 28 can relate that to their lives and see how they could apply it.
James Lawley is the founder of the YouTube channel Gent Z, and you can also find him at gent-z.com. The piece in the journal, I'll send it out on X. Pretty good. Gen Z walks into a bar and grows up. It was actually well written, too. The guy who interviewed you was pretty good. Anyway, James Lawley, thanks so much for joining us. Continued success with the YouTube channel.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
And James Lawley joined us on the Turnkey.Pro answer line.
It's like a hot, steaming cup of information to start your day. It's Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Are you turning 65 and thinking about Medicare? Or are you over